Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of Read, Return, Repeat, a ReadICT podcast. I'm your host, Sara McNeil of the Wichita Public Library. In today's episode titled TBR and Ready, we will explore 3 categories: travel, author under 30, and ugly cover with Watermark Books and Café owner Sara Bagby. Sara has promoted literacy in Wichita for decades by serving on the Wichita Public Library Board of Directors and also reviewing books for Wichita's NPR station affiliate, KMUW. Sara has cultivated a vibrant reading culture with her independent bookstore and often hosts in-person and virtual events in addition to many genre-specific book clubs. Sara, thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about books.
Oh, yeah. This is our 8th episode, and I can already count 2 episodes where people have mentioned you specifically. So you're the perfect person to talk about books with.
Oh.
Well, let's just get started. Who or what helped you develop your love of reading?
Well, my parents were both big readers. And so, I grew up with books in my life as a part of my daily life. And then also my dad took me, it was his day off was Thursday, and we went to the downtown library from my house on the west side down, McLean Boulevard to the public library every Thursday.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That's really
He'd come
sweet.
back with a stack of books. He'd come back with a stack of probably mysteries, and I'd be up there in the kids section, just, Beverly Cleary or, as I grew older, different things, but not specifically Beverly Cleary, but
Yeah, I recently went back to the old Central Branch. I had to go look for some stuff in storage, and it just flooded me with so many memories. And I didn't go there as a child. I just took my own child there when it was open, but it was just like heavy nostalgia, and just climbing those stairs up to the children's room was like, oh, wow. I can see why so many people have such strong feelings about that space, and that library really built a lot of.
And honestly, I think when we first moved here, we went to the one across the street, the Carnegie Library.
Oh, wow.
Before the Central opened. So I'm aging myself here, but I do remember going up. And so the library's always been an important part of my life. My daughter volunteered at Evergreen for a couple of years. And so, I love the library.
Yeah, that's great. One memory I have from going to the library as a child, and it has nothing to do with books, but they used to have these old timey rockers like you would see at Cracker Barrel. And we would play these oversized checkers, like they had a checkerboard. And you would not believe how many kids coveted that like rocking chair. They needed to get over there and play that checker game. Now kids have computers or the odd computers here, and that's where they rush to. But the novelty of an oversized set of checkers and a whole rocking chair was like.
It's those things, though, that make you, the library probably was really an instigator in helping me read, because I cherished that time with my dad. I would go there in high school to study on the mezzanine. Okay. And I had my favorite table, and I would have to, do research and go to the card catalog and go to the, the magazine index thing. What was it called?
Oh, those file readers. Yeah, that was kind of before my time.
It was so fun. I love doing that. And I just love going to the library. And I went up there a lot. I went with my mom. We went to see films. We went to do all the things. My mom would check out paintings.
Oh, yeah, that was a thing.
And so I have to say that I was always involved as a kid. Now that I am in a bookstore most of my life, I don't go to the library as much, but I certainly appreciate everything and want to support it as much as I can. Before COVID, we had some events there. In fact, our very last event before the shutdown was Lisa C.
Yeah.
We hosted her, and it was so funny because that author event had every picture we took had a ginormous bottle of hand sanitizer.
We were prepared. Was that in February or was that March? I couldn't.
It was in March. It was
Okay.
like 13th, maybe.
Right before.
It was the 12th. Somebody just told me. She knew exactly when it was. And it was Lisa C.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her last event publicly.
Yeah.
So, I'll always remember that as our last event. So see the library creeps back into our lives.
I know.
In
Well,
every way.
That's really awesome that you mentioned the decorative paintings. So we've kind of started this thing this year where we're circulating a collection called Library of Things, which is similar to that: telescopes, radon detectors, hotspots, and stuff like that. I know in Andover, they circulate cake pans, which is like, how random is that? But it's awesome. Like if you need a cake pan, get on the phone and call Andover so you can get a cake pan sent to you. Well, so we kind of talked a little bit briefly about this, but if I were to jump into my library time machine and ask adolescent Sara what she wanted to be when she grew up, kind of based off of your reading interests at the time, what would you have said? Probably not a bookstore owner, huh?
No, I would have never imagined that. I think I would have said that I wanted to be the kind of reader that impressed my dad.
Oh.
Because he was such a snob about it. I mean, he would meet somebody and he'd say, "Oh, they don't read."
Oh,
I mean, it's like there's two kinds of people in the world. And I remember one time, and he was an Episcopal priest, but he liked the intellectual part as much as the spiritual part.
Sure.
And I remember he came to visit me once when I first started working at Watermark downtown, and I said, "Do you like it?" And I was all excited.
Yeah.
And he said, "You don't have enough theology books."
Oh.
So I felt like,
Wow.
Anyway, so I was determined at that point to have my own course as a reader.
Yeah.
So I would say my adolescent self was really wanting approval from my dad as a reader.
I think we all kind of secretly want that from some family member who is a strong reader. We want that recognition, that validation that, yeah, look at me. I'm just as competent. I'm just as invested or interested. And sometimes we don't always get that from the person that's right next to us. But it shows him taking you to the library over and over again that you did have that connection with him. So.
Right, exactly. And I do remember a few books I read at that time that that are still some of my favorite books. And one was Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. Brought it.
Okay.
Which is the book about, it's a retelling of Jane Eyre with from the wife's point of view, the wife in the attic.
Oh.
It's a beautiful book. It's one of those, I think you could read it on two levels. One just as a novel with a narrative arc, and that's good. But then the other one as an academic study of, wow, how does this compare? What does it mean for her identity? All those kinds of things. And another one was Sula by Toni Morrison. Okay. I remember where I was when I read that book, and it's just one of those books that just caught me, lit up inside at that time. I mean, a lot of books do that now. And the other one was Joan Didion's Slouching Towards Bethlehem, which is a book. She's just such a great nonfiction writer. And she wrote this book in 1968. And it's still timely, but I thought I was really pretty cool when I read this.
Yeah.
And, there's this one that, she goes to Death Valley. And then she talks about San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury and the whole rise of this hippie movement. And it's so interesting still today. I went back and read it. I was in an Airbnb one time and I didn't have a book. And this was the only book there. So I reread it and it just took me back. So
how cool.
Yeah. So those are some of my favorite books at that time. I don't think they molded me as much as just lit that.
Yeah.
They satisfied that kind of, I mean, it's just an excitement that you have when you read ideas and it's expansive and transportive.
Yeah, definitely. And, sometimes just reading it once is all that you need. But like you said, revisiting it later and catching so much more, or, reacquainting yourself with those emotions and feelings you had the first time and saying, oh, yeah, this is why I enjoyed it so much. Or maybe this has helped catapult me on this path. Yeah, that's great.
Right. Well, when you're an adolescent, who do you want to escape from the most but yourself? Although you're so self-absorbed. Right. And so when I read it, when I was an adolescent, I read this book and I thought it made me cool. But when I read it later, I could definitely just appreciate her talent and skill. So, it's two different sort of experiences and places in life.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, so can you share with our listeners your journey to owning and managing one of Wichita's premier independent bookstores? You mentioned getting a job there as a young person. How did that transpire to actually owning the shop?
Well, I worked part-time, and it was a place I felt comfortable because I'm surrounded by books. I've been, it was such a part of my identity to have books in my life. And I worked part-time. The people who founded the store, one wanted to go back to North Carolina, where she was from, and the other one needed to go back to Milwaukee to run a family business. And so they were like, Sarah, will you just take this and manage it? And I did. And then I just kind of determined, and I'm kind of driven and the challenges have been incredible throughout my time. I mean, in the 90s, there was the invasion of box stores, and then also Amazon. And so that created a whole different set of challenges after just, kind of thriving and being, B. Dalton was in the mall and Walden Books but we had a different kind of setting. Right. And so that was wonderful. And then also there was when we moved into our location at Lincoln Heights, we had to add a cafe. Or we didn't have to, we chose to, because that was the trend at the time. Sure. You had to have something else. And, I didn't know what I was doing. So I still don't know what I'm doing, but we made it work, and it became a place where people loved to gather, and that was satisfying. And it was, and then COVID, and we're just, I have the best staff anybody could ask for. And we made it through COVID. And we're still just, doing everything we can to connect people with books that they love and sell products that will entertain and connect people to each other. So that's the path. And I had a child during that time. Only one. I'm a hobbyist, but I think that I took over most of the 90% of the ownership in the mid 90s. So yeah, it's been good.
That's great. Yeah. The last time I went into your store, I bought one book, and then I just bought other things like a kitchen towel and just like the most kitschy stuff. But I was like, I don't know where I'm going to find this. And this is amazing. So I appreciate you expanding it past books. I also really love your cafe. You have all these really fun title or names for your sandwiches that correlate with literature, which is pretty clever. So that really feeds that book nerd in me for sure.
Yeah. And we're open, we've been open for a long time. We have protocol though, that we feel safe with. And that I feel like my staff is protected, for the most part. And our cafe's open for to go, and people really miss the cafe.
Right.
I just don't feel ready.
Yeah, well,
you've had a lot of people gather.
Yeah, it's been seamless though. I mean, you've hosted virtual events. You just pivoted from doing in-person to virtual when practically no one was doing that last year. And then also, you special order a lot of books for people who want books, and you've made them available for pickup. There's a lot of library staff that order books through you and pick them up and love it. So, I mean, I think that attributes to your success, especially in the wake of COVID and everything. You've just made yourself available. You've kept your services available. And so that speaks to that. But
well, the libraries, you've pivoted well too. I mean, it was tough. It was tough.
Right. We've all just had to be flexible, and we're in an industry where we have to do that. Everything's changing all the time. So we just have to be ready for change. But yeah, it's been inspirational watching your business, like I said, pivot to virtual. I think that's also kind of eased some tensions or made the burden less stringent on folks when they're used to doing things in person. It's like, well, across the board, this is how we can offer services to people, and just, we all have to learn.
Yeah. And the online ordering people like. And so that aspect of our business grew a lot.
Right.
And I know yours has online. I mean, checking out and all that kind of stuff. And it's been interesting. I mean, it's not all bad, No. It's not, the virtual thing is not all bad.
Definitely not. Yeah. eBooks, for a long time, people thought eBooks they were going to take over print books. And it's like, well, no, people are still buying print. But in the last year and a half, people have definitely started using ebooks and e-audiobooks a lot more. I know that your shop does e-audiobooks through, is it Libros? Is that right?
Libro.com. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and that aspect of the business has grown exponentially. In fact, I think the last thing I read about it was that it was the biggest growth area in publishing over the last year, maybe 2 years.
I believe it. Yeah. We've all had a kind of a hard time focusing on just reading in print. And I've noticed myself included have just been listening to a lot more audiobooks when I have time to do it, just because it works better in my scheduling. But
you can do your ironing.
Yeah.
You can do
you can walk your dog.
Exactly.
You can wash your dishes. I water my garden. I listen to books all the time.
So that's fun.
Well, hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about recommendations from Sara Bagby, owner of Watermark Books and Café. So stick around.
Libby is the library's app for easily downloading ebooks and audiobooks right to your mobile device. With your library card, you have access to thousands of titles for free. Download it from wherever you get your apps, sign in with your Wichita Public Library card, and start reading today. Don't have a library card yet? Come see us at any of our 7 locations around Wichita.
Okay, well, welcome back to the show. We're here with Sara Bagby, and we've been talking about fostering a literary movement from the ground up in Wichita. So here comes the fun part. Let's talk categories. This episode, we're going to talk about 3. And you are the best person to talk to because you own a bookstore and you have books around you all the time. So can you give some recommendations for category 4? That's a book about travel for our fiction and our nonfiction listeners. So that way we can just get a good scope of books that mention travel or have travel as a theme.
Okay. Let's see, travel as a theme for fiction. I'm coming up with a blank, but I have 2 nonfiction books. One that reads like fiction, which is by Girl Bryson.
Oh, I love that book. I love that book.
Won't this fit? I mean, it's a journey on the Appalachian Trail.
Yes.
And I mean, look at the cover. Look at that bear.
So my husband loves to backpack, and I am not a camper. I did not grow up as a camper. And so I gave him this book to read because I was like, here, you should read this book and like gain some perspective on like what I feel like when you want to pitch, let's go camping in the backwoods. Because it's like you go to REI and you need like $700 worth of gear, and that, and the more you spend, the smaller the equipment is, but that's really good because it's less weight. But, just like coming to grips with that,
Yeah. And there's a whole vocabulary with through campers, or just, you're just doing a little bit of the trail.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a place that was for through campers and people who just wanted one little destination. And I didn't know yet about trail names.
Right.
And so I was sitting down